Alpida, what did you do?
I did nothing.
Look at this mess.
This, sir, was your mess with your tools.
None of this was here when we started.
Yes, I just said you made the mess.
Oh, you made the mess.
I don't make messes like this.
Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of the Urban Homesteading channel with Professor DIY, Mrs. DIY, and Alpida. Today we're going to have a very interesting project for you that also will solve a problem that I have.
There, see?
All
we
right.
can see. We can see what this mess is.
We saw that already.
We're showing it again, just to emphasize
So
the problem.
we are going to build a seemingly simple but rather complex to put together shoe organizer to address my multiple of shoes that are strewn all over the place. And the only place we have is somewhere here, so we're probably going to put it here or here.
Okay.
Remember, we've done this in a different episode, so we continue with our organizational series, right?
This is our simple project for today. It's very simple with about 85 clamps on here so far. We're trying to keep everything in place, not moving, and we have created a channel for our first swipe.
You should be behind me, you cannot be there.
A beautiful channel. Fantastico.
Yeah. Well, you have to do it how many times more?
And the more funner part,
That's
the more funner
funner?
part is that these boards have to be slid down and replaced and reclamped and redone for every single one of these channels. So we're going to get to that.
So we wanted to make sure that our channels are evenly spaced, and we came up with, about 10 inches, give or take a little bit, between each shelf. So what we did was we made a mark using a storyboard from where the original channel pieces were here, and the distance between the channel lip and the bottom. And so we took it was 1.5 inches, so we're taking a 2 by 4. This is actually a 2 by 3, but the thickness is the same.
It's still that 1.5
Yeah,
inch for the dimensional number.
right? So we used that here. We put it here and lined it up.
And you had
made a mark,
Mhm.
and then that is the distance between the mark where we want our board to be and the braces on both sides.
Okay.
Now, these numbers will be different based on your outer base.
Mm-hmm.
So that 1.5 does not mean you have to copy it, because if your outer base is a different dimension, it will not be
Right.
1.5.
We're just
Exactly.
explaining how we did it that
Right.
fits this router base.
And then one last thing, we wanted to make sure that both ends of the channel braces were, first of all, square, so that nice and square there, nice and square over here, and that the distance between them is even all the way across. Got it right at 5 1/4 here.
Ensuring that the two rails are parallel and at the same distance from each other will produce a very straight channel that you can attach yourselves to.
Very good. And so now we're ready to make the second channel.
How many times do we have to do this?
There we go. This one didn't hold all the sawdust like the last one, but it's a very nice channel.
Not as nice, but it's okay.
It will work for the purpose we need it.
What's wrong with my face?
So you don't get all the sawdust in it. So we have rearranged our board. So this is where we had started, and we moved down We've got these channels all done, and we are about to do the last channel, and we just routed the second to last one. We're moving our guide boards.
And if I was to point out something without our new table, we couldn't have done this.
Right, this would have been a really difficult project. And so again, we've got just about all of our channels done. The only thing different is that the very top one was done at the very end, so it's going to be here along this edge so that the board will sit kind of in a depression, right?
Yeah, and it's a hard one, and you can actually use a different size board and go freely on top or in between if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Right. We just chose to continue doing the channels to keep it consistent. Okay?
Okay, and how we're doing this, Mrs. DIY? Take us through the process.
All right.
You've made
So-
your marks.
I've made marks. This is the mark that shows where the edge of the channel will be.
In our case, that's what,
So it
about
was-
9.5 inches?
Yeah, it would sit like so. Yep. So it's from this edge right here to this edge, and that would start the next channel. So I have my storyboard that I'll put right up next to the line. That's where the edge will be. And then we put our brace right up next to that and secure it in place.
And again, this distance, the 1.5 inches, is dependent on your router plate. That is not going to be a set distance, right?
Right.
Or even the distance between the shelves. That's arbitrary. We chose to have it that. It is not a, there is not a specific reason for it.
So then we're making sure it's square.
Because in essence, everything is based on this, right?
Yep. Then we make our channels width based on the width of the router.
And you want it not too tight, because you need to be moving the router, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It has to be able to move through the channel, but you don't want it to rock from side to side.
Okay. The router is the perfect tool to make datas, which we continually refer to as channels here, but we are in essence making datas. And if you go slowly and you have a sharp beat, you have a really excellent result that can help you align your projects and make sure they are square. In any case, go slow and with a steady hand, and you're going to have absolutely perfect results every time. The best way to make datas. It works better if you don't step on the router cable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but there it is. It's a very nice, fine channel.
Well, we are using our bench stop as bench stops are supposed to use. We're screwing things on them.
We're screwing now.
We're making a jig of sorts, right?
Right.
So we can use our
Track saw.
track saw to make cuts
Mm-hmm.
that will eventually become our shelving units, right? So all we're doing is we're attaching pieces of scrap. We make sure that these are actually square, right,
To the table.
to the table. And if it is square to the table, then our cut will be square.
Okay.
That's the idea, right?
So
And
we've
so-
attached one,
Mm-hmm.
and we're working on attaching the other one.
And this will create the channel for this board to slide forward to make each cut.
Okay, we don't want it too
Again, not too tight when
too
you're making
tight
this
because we need to
channel.
move, right?
Yeah.
It pains me to screw into our board, which is what was designed to be doing.
Right. Now you can see how the channel's going to work there. And then the track is going to go on top.
Mm-hmm.
And we have determined that the space that we need shelves for, we need a 10-inch wide shelf. So we're actually making it 10.5 so that we will have the 1/4 inch on either side for the channels that we made earlier.
Excellent. So how can we automate this? So we're using previous cuts as our storyboard to make sure all our boards are the same cut, right? The same width. And then we're going to cut the next one. So it's easier with two people, as you can see, right? One pushing the board through and the other not pushing the board through.
But making the measurement.
Right, but this is kind of an assembly process, right? It makes it easier so we don't have to constantly set the rail and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to build a more permanent jig in the future.
Maybe.
Put screws on the rail and put it on hinges, something of this nature.
Okay, so we've come to the end of the board. This is the end piece of the board, and we used the offcut that we used for the correct size to make a measurement. And as you can see, we used a pencil to draw a line there. And now what we're going to do, because that's going to be a really difficult cut, is we're actually going to turn it around in the channel. Instead of trying to cut a little bitty piece off on the wrong way, going to slide it through and line that up so that we actually are able to cut off this piece safely and make it the correct size.
Okay, so you see the line there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, push it until it is because there. A thickness planer is not absolutely necessary, but if you have one, it's a great tool to have if your dimensions are not exactly what you were expecting them to be. All right. Yeah, I don't know how we can present that because it shouldn't be a part of the process.
Shouldn't, but it's part of our process. So what's happening here is that our channels, which we did with a 5/8 bit because these measured at 5/8, actually these boards are slightly thicker. So we're having to do just a little bit of thickness planing to make them go into the channels correctly. And so now we've got it all good. And they're still snug, but they're sliding the way they should.
Well, you want them snug.
Yes, you want it snug so it's not going to move around and come out of the channel. And then we're just using 2 screws to hold them into place. And we're using a square to make sure that we're in line with our channel. Here's another tips and trips for you. To make sure that we line up with the channel, we are using a square. We're going to bring it over just a little bit more to make sure that we are in the middle there. And then that makes sure that we always are on the same line. Our channels are all perpendicular. And so we're going to drill our holes here. I'm going to violate the rules and go.
Yeah, but you can do it on the same speed because now automatically.
Okay. So now we can take away the square. And we've got the 2 pilot holes that we've drilled there. No, it isn't.
No, it's the right
No,
end.
it isn't. This channel.
It's got to go further down.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not the wrong end.
It's that we weren't at the end.
Okay. Now this will need a lot of finagling. That's always the case.
So we got
A lot of finagling to do.
1/2 of this put together. And then it's just a matter of,
Aligning
as you
everything.
said, finagling and aligning these into the top channels. This one is close. We might have to use some percussive persuasion.
No, I don't think we'll need that.
You don't think we need that? It's
No.
just getting everything aligned.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, this end is aligned. You need to line that side.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
This side, you need to align it to the groove.
All right, we're going to align these and come back to you. So we're just going to go along and align each one and get it fastened into place so that as we move up the board, because what we're finding is that some of these boards have a little bit of wonkiness to them, and so we're going to get them into the channels and attached as we move up the line. And then the final piece will be the top board, which again has these channels. and it'll just sit right in place.
So all this fun we had today, and this was the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in our purpose, this is going to be a shoe cubby, right? But it can be, you can use the exact building methodology and make a bookcase of any size you want. That is the fun part of DIY. I've made bookcases for my sons that in some cases people wanted $1,000 to build because of the size, right? But still in materials it was not even close to $100. So identical methodology, you're going to have a display cabinet, a shoe caddy. You can actually put, if you make the right dimensions,
The little
the
buckets.
cloth, what do you call them?
Cloth
Cube.
buckets,
The
cubes,
cloth
yeah.
cubes, yeah. So the same things that we saw you, the techniques we saw you, can be used to make a plethora of things. So friends, here we are back from the garage, and here is our shoe organizer. And again, it can be many different things. I need it for a shoe organizer, but one of the fun things about DIY, you can make projects like this to address any any organizational need you might have, right?
Right.
So ladies, what did we learn from this build? Double, triple check the wood you buy.
Yeah, so for
Yeah,
sizing.
that's a big one.
We ended up with different width boards, which it was our bad,
Mm-hmm.
but neither of us caught it. Three sets of eyes, none of us caught it.
I don't think we've had that much variance before, though.
No, I don't think so
We
either.
usually have a very slight variance, but today was a very
About an
large.
inch.
Yeah, it was a very large variance in the sizing of the wood.
And really a smaller variance, an eighth or a fourth wouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
Not a deal.
The
But-
deal.
But that was just long enough to cause us to have to re-mill things, right?
Right.
What was the hardest part of this?
Getting everything in the right channels, really.
Right, Sam?
Well, and there was, the boards weren't perfectly straight. So there was a little bit of bowing that we had to address and getting them in the right channel.
Right, and the thickness was not quite. I mean, our channels were the correct thickness because we use a 5/8
Router bit.
router bit, but either you have to spend hours hammering them in, or if you have a thickness planer, I cannot speak now.
A plainness thickener. That's a new one.
Do what we did and actually thin them a little bit, right? And we only took one pass. We didn't remove a lot of material, right?
Right. But then they were perfect.
Yeah, then they fit a very nice snug fit.
Mm-hmm.
So all those shoes that they were strewn around the floor are now organized, easy for me to see and wear.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a project that we could not. You can buy shoe organizers, of course, in stores, right? But the shoe organizer to fit this specific space will be a very tall order to fill.
Right. And that's one of the very cool things about DIY is when you have a need, you can make it specific to what you need.
Correct. Well, folks, this is another organization project come to you from the Urban Homesteading channel. And I must admit, this was a little bit of a frustrating episode because we did make some mistakes. We missed some things like the width of the boards, right?
Right.
And then silly things happened that made a seemingly simple project take longer than it should have, right?
It's a little more challenging, but we still made it work.
Right, and we are happy with the result.
Mm-hmm.
So this was our first episode for 2023. Happy New Year to everyone, and we're going to see you again with a new episode.